This is my second post in the video series Global Warming Mythbusters. In this post, I'm going to deal with the myth of global cooling. This is a very popular denialist argument. It goes something like this. In the decades following World War II, there was actually a dip in global temperatures, not a rise. This was a period of industrialization when a lot of CO2 was being released. So the fact that temperatures went down during this period proves that anthropogenic global warming is a myth. Spare me. This argument doesn't stand up to any scrutiny, mainly for two reasons, both of which I'll try to explain as best as I can. The first reason has to do with something called albedo, or the reflectivity of the Earth's surface. Light-colored areas have a high albedo. They reflect light, sending it back into outer space. Dark-colored areas absorb light, warming up because of it. This is why people try to not wear black on a warm day. Now, think about this. When you're flying in an airplane and you look out the window at 30,000 feet, what looks darker, a wheat field or a forest? Obviously the forest. During the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, a whole lot of forests were cut down to make room for cropland. This increased the albedo, or reflectivity, of the Earth's surface, lowering temperatures for a very short time. Now, I'm not saying that we can fix global warming by killing trees. In the long term, trees capture a lot of CO2, actually helping to stabilize the climate. All I'm saying is that in the very short term, the changing color of the Earth's surface due to the plowing under a forest for agricultural land caused us to read a slight drop in temperatures during the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. The second reason the mid-20th century cooling argument doesn't stand up to scrutiny is because of something called global dimming. You see, not all of the crap we put into the air has quite the same effect. CO2 raises the Earth's temperature. There are other buggers like sulfates and aerosols which lower the Earth's temperature by reflecting heat back into outer space. These substances are examples of climate forcings. Dust from a volcanic eruption is another great example of forcing. Where these forcings came from is when during the 60s and 70s we were burning dirty coal and dirty gasoline, and we were doing it all in dirty ways. This released a lot of those substances into the atmosphere along with CO2, and they sort of canceled out the effects of the CO2 by causing global dimming along with global cooling. Now, these forcings didn't stay around with us forever. We realized that many of these substances caused big problems, like worsening asthma symptoms in certain people or poisoning our crops. So we did stuff like pass the Air Quality Act of 1967. From then on, we started getting rid of potential forcings by doing stuff like putting catalytic converters in cars or scrubbers in factory smokestacks. These approaches worked for most pollutants, but there's really no way to scrub CO2 out of exhaust. So CO2 levels kept rising just as levels of all other pollutants went down. This explains why we're not really seeing the effects of global dimming on climate change today, and why all we're seeing is the global warming. And this explains why the mid-20th century cooling trend was broken. Without the effects of global dimming, and with the deforestation of the 1960s and 70s, we've emerged from a mid-century cooling trend into a measurable global warming trend in the 1990s and the new millennium. So, the myth of the mid-20th century cooling trend disproving global warming. Myth busted.